iTiS World of Worship Fellowship. iTiS is in truth and in spirit. And we get that from John chapter 4, verse 24. Yeah, and this we usually have Monday fellowships in form of Q&A or Q&R if you like. We ask questions from the Bible, from religion, from faith, prophecy, God, marriage, society generally, and everything. We discuss everything here on Monday, and not because we are experts on each and everything, but because, we give our revelation and then God continues revealing whatever answer you're seeking. So that's our Monday fellowship. We welcome everybody. Today is a special one because we are discussing the Marriage Bill 2024. It's still a bill, not an act. So obviously it means it's still undergoing the processes, the legal processes in Uganda here. And what piqued my interest here was a paper authored by Arthur, who's one of the panelists for this evening. And he had some points saying this marriage bill in its current form is a threat to Christian marriage as we know it, at least biblically. And of course, he had some verses to back up his point. So I just thought we'd have a discussion here today about the same. So Arthur will go first. After that, I'll allow the Gospel Ninja, Reverend Raymond Bukenya, will present next, or maybe react, depending on how it goes. And then Isaiah will come in last. After the three panelists have all presented, we'll have an open discussion, Q&A style. So if you have a question in between and you feel you'll forget it, just put it through the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat room. Okay. If you want to say anything, please raise your hand. Don't just unmute and start speaking when you're not called. Let's be disciplined here. All right. And I think it's going to be a good discussion. So welcome aboard. Like I said in the beginning, this is recorded and later we'll upload it to YouTube. Again, the channel is iTiS World of Worship Fellowship. So if you feel like sharing this recording with anybody, I'll be sharing the link after here with the full recording. Hopefully someone else can benefit. So welcome aboard. We're discussing the Marriage Bill 2024. And Arthur, I want to start with you because it is your paper that you wrote that piqued my interest. Obviously, we're not going to go through the bill clause by clause, paragraph by paragraph. No. I just want to start with you. First of all, but this might even not be a fair question to you, but why did we need a new marriage bill, first of all? Can you just start there before you go into the nitty-gritties? Arthur, please unmute.
Ask that question again. You are not clear.
Oh, really? Okay, I said I want to start from the point of why we needed the marriage bill in the first place, and probably we'll also start with some definitions. What is marriage? Because I know this is a legal document, so does marriage as defined by the law differ from marriage as defined by the Bible, first of all? Yeah, I think let's start from that unfair point on your behalf, Arthur. What is marriage? And then you'll tell us why probably there's a new marriage bill and what it seeks to cure before you go into some of the anomalies that you identified. Please take it away.
Thank you, moderator. Like earlier introduced, Arthur Ayodeche is my name. I practice law with ASB Advocates. I'm one of the partners, but also I'm a believer. I'm born again. I'm a preacher of the gospel, and for that matter, I am very much interested in what affects the church arising from the law. Your question is, why did we need the bill? Of course, I am not the promulgator of the bill, so I might not have all the 100 reasons why they had to do another bill. But briefly, the promulgators of this bill have in mind putting together all laws about marriage. Now, we have the Marriage Act, we have the Divorce Act, we have other laws that we have been using concerning marriage. So there have been several of them in different pieces of legislation. So this very bill is attempting to put them under one roof or under one document that is going to be called the Marriage Act 2024. That's in brief what they had, I think, at the back of the mind. But also the previous laws have been challenged severally in different courts of law. And so several parts have been either expunged, declared null and void, have been said that they are unconstitutional by different courts at different intervals. And so those that have been removed have not been actually properly or well captured in the laws that are prevailing. So the need for an amendment was in light of removing those that were overruled or declared null and void or unconstitutional by the courts, and then remain with those that are still prevailing was good law. But also,
Okay.
also it is introducing new areas that have not been in any of these laws. So they are trying to be innovative in one or the other by copying all other jurisdictions, what they have been doing, thinking that maybe it is now good for Uganda. That's what I could say was at the heart of the promulgators, which again,
Okay.
I said disclaimerly, I am not one of the promulgators.
I know it was an unfair question for you, but yeah, at least you've given us some good background still. So now I know we're not going to discuss each and every clause or paragraph, but I just want you to go into your paper and just briefly outline what you feel is a threat to Christian marriage, as you called it.
Okay, so marriage as we know it, marriage is a fact of law, is a point of law, not actually as not circumstantial. So for you to say I'm married, you must have a legal backup. You don't say I'm married because I have children or because I have someone I sleep with. So when you say I am married, I am married, you must have something that is backing you up. And that is the law that we are now talking about. And so what I identified as threats after reading the bill, one is the law as we have always known it has been that polygamy has not been legislated in our laws, though the African traditional systems have been allowed, saying in the law that if you're married traditionally, that means you are a Musoga, you married according to the customs of Musoga, you are a Muganda, customs of Uganda, you could be allowed to marry more women. Also the same with Islamic marriages, with those they have been allowing, but not properly legislated. So now there was an attempt, I think 2 years ago, to bring a petition to legalize polygamy, which also never saw the light of the day in the Constitutional Court. Now, this bill is legalizing polygamy. Clause 4 of the bill is very clear, and it is introducing polygamy. So the civil marriages, where the church has been getting its strength, we are all aware that the church has been wedding people using the civil marriages under the act. We are also aware that the church seeks permission, applies and is given a certificate, their place is gazetted, and after that they do returns. And any marriage that is solemnized in church has been monogamous marriages. So now when they make civil marriages potentially polygamous, they have opened up the floodgate of polygamy in our laws because it's now clearly legislated. Now, to help and calm down the pressure from the church, they introduced clause 5 that they say that there shall be a church marriage, and the church marriage shall be monogamous. But you see, they are giving with one hand and taking away with the other. Other clause 39, they say that there shall be what they called conversion. If I am married in church, I can apply to the registrar to court to convert my marriage from being potentially monogamous, potentially polygamous. So that means that anyone who is married in whichever form, I can apply Of course, they say that with the consent of the spouse. Like I think when I authored this, when I said this was a brief of what I had presented a paper at some fellowship, Focus had a fellowship where they invited me to talk about the bill. So this was just a summary. We talked in detail exactly what this means. And so since we are not going into that,
I thought that's okay. So point number one is it introduces polygamy. I think we've understood that. What is the next point?
Point number two is we are being introduced to contractual marriages. Clause 47 introduces what we call prenuptial and postnuptial agreements, meaning that before I enter marriage, I sit with my girlfriend or fiancé or wife to be. We enter an agreement that we are going to be married for 5 years. Any property we acquire during the marriage, this is how we are going to distribute it. So that you have an agreement. After that agreement, of course, this is imported from other jurisdictions, and they are now bringing it here. And that overturns what the church has been standing for, that marriages are in perpetuity. We are married paka last, like normally say. The
Till
other
death
point
do you
is
apart.
until death do you apart.
Mm.
The other point that is being introduced under clause 74 is they are introduced a no fault clause. No fault clause in our marriages has not been, in our divorces has not been there. Divorces have been happening. Court has been awarding, has been granting divorces, but you had to have reasons why you're divorcing. Initially, they had to be 2 reasons for a man, 1 reason, I think 1 reason for a man, 2 reasons for a wife. That was overturned in court, that any party can bring 1 or 2 reasons. It does not have to. But now they are saying you can go to court without any reason. Just state that our relationship has irretrievably broken down. And the court will just award that, even though you have no any other. I don't feed you. I no longer have emotions for you or anything that you have. Initially, our grounds
why is that a problem?
Why is it a problem? Is that any challenge that you get with your wife, you're free to go and divorce. Any challenge that your wife gets with you, you can just say and state, he's no longer picking my calls, so the marriage has broken down without any other reason. I think there is a problem because you have actually opened up a floodgate. Because to get a reason like adultery, you had to prove it. You have to work hard. You can't just raise any reason that you come across to say it amounts to adultery. You must have proof. Cruelty, you must prove it. Change of religion, you must prove it. So now you don't need to prove anything. As long as you say our marriage has broken down under the new law, the courts are obliged to grant the divorce. So So these areas are the ones that I really see a great potential of, or a great threat to the church as we know it, as a monogamous, or what we have been encouraging our people to follow. There are other issues that I don't know whether I have the luxury to go into, but I think those are the most main 3 points that I had that I forwarded as a case for the marriage that is happening.
Okay, thank you, Arthur. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit. And this question I'm actually going to pose to all the panelists. My dilemma here is, who owns marriage? Who's the custodian of marriage? Is it the church or is it government? Because the church works on behalf of the government, if I'm not mistaken. So who is the custodian of marriage?
So maybe since we have here theologians, maybe they will help to give the theological backup of these marriages. But legally, the church has been given delegated power to wed people under the structure that has been given to them. So if you are a recognized entity, well registered, you wed people, you must file returns to the government. Even the amount is prescribed under the law that you must charge. Of course, you can charge higher or whatever you want, but there's a prescribed fee. So if your question is, who is the custodian of marriage? I think the marriages, they belong to the government. That's why you have the law protecting the marriages. And once it is in position and structured, it is protected by the law, by the government. So it's not on the whims of whoever feels I can jump out as and when I want. It is now a legally protected entity and institution.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my question. Government is the custodian. So, for a Christian, at what point does God get involved in my marriage? If the custodian of marriage is the law, or rather is government, at what point is God involved in my marriage? Is it when I first feel the butterflies? Is it when I go before the parents or before I go to the government? At what point is God involved in my marriage? Arthur, according to you.
So when
I'm following the due process of the law, that's God is for following the due process. Is that what you'd say?
The challenge that question poses is saying that God has not been, we have to invite him at a particular time. I think him as the author and perfecter of who we are and what we stand for, including the government, everything is God's entity. So
okay.
when you go to church, you're going there saying, I am making a declaration that I'm going to stick to this wife. She's going to stick to me until death do us apart. So it's a God entity, and marriages were not initiated by the government. If I remember well, my Sunday school, it started in Genesis when God created man and woman and said that they are going to live together for purposes of procreation and being co-creators.
Okay,
I might be theoretically wrong. Since they are theologians here, they will help us.
No problem, Arthur. I just wanted to hear your stand on this. Like I said, I'm going to pose the same questions to these other panelists, and I hope I'll get some answers. Yeah, so thank you for the intro. If you've just joined us, we are discussing the Marriage Bill 2024. This is in Uganda, of course. Arthur wrote a paper saying some sections in that bill are anti-Christian, if that is my phraseology, but he said some of them go against the Bible, and he has highlighted just a few of them. We can't go through each paragraph and each full stop, but he has said polygamy is now being legalized even in civil unions, which previously was not possible. He has talked about contractual marriages as also being allowed. Basically, I can say we are going to be married for 5 years and then we'll go our separate ways. And then thirdly, he talked about the no fault clause, whereby now you don't need a real reason to divorce somebody. You just say irreconcilable differences or whatever that word is. So, okay, so if you have a question, we're going to have an open discussion after the panelists have presented. So feel free to type it in the chat. Like I already see one from Billy. Billy is asking, what does the law say about polyandry? I think Arthur will answer that at some point. But for now, I want to move to you, Gospel Ninja. Raymond, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Are you back from Karamoja?
I am back. I'm in Kampala right now.
No wonder you're loud and clear. So please, what are your thoughts on this? I don't know if you had a chance to read the marriage bill or read Arthur's paper, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I've looked at both the current Marriage Act and the proposed Marriage Bill of 2024. And thank you, Arthur, for clarifying. I totally agree with Arthur on Christian grounds. He's making his observations and objections to the bill are definitely based on a Christian worldview. And in view of your question about who is in charge of marriages in Uganda, the answer is twofold. It is the government, and sovereignly, it is God. And the church will acknowledge that it officiates or solemnizes marriages on behalf of the state. And therefore, yes, on the observations and objections are based or grounded in a Christian worldview. But then we are not a Christian state. We are not a theocracy. Hence, the observations, while are legitimate from a Christian worldview, they become problematic in national legislation. And that's why I think I'm going to come at it from a different direction. I agree, as a Christian, the observation that Arthur has made, and I did read his paper as well. So definitely, I will not repeat what he has said, but definitely the civil marriage and the Christian or church marriage have been the main monogamous marriages. The rest recognized marriages in our jurisdiction are open to polygamy. Unfortunately, in line with Billy's question, they're not necessarily open to polyandry, which is the provision for a woman to have more than one man as for a spouse. But anyway, so yes, the civil marriage, the church marriage is not in contention. It remains monogamous. And he said the state is giving with one hand, or the proponents of the bill are giving with one hand and taking away with another. The civil that they're opening up for, I did listen to the major proponent, who is the, I think, woman MP for Tororo, what's her name? Sarah Opendi. Yes, her argument is that most marriages in Uganda, and I think it's false, but has substance. Traditionally, customarily, our marriages are open to polygamy. Islam marriages or Mohammedan marriages are open to polygamy. Bahaian marriages, which are also recognized, are clearly open, though they're not against polygamy. And then the Indian or Hindu marriage, which is also acknowledged in our jurisdiction, is matriarchal. The women marry, as far as I know, but they're not directly for polygamy. In Indian traditional, before the modern times, it was polygamous, but now modern times seem to indicate that they're not, or they're trying to restrict and stick to one spouse. So the civil, particularly the civil marriage in Uganda being opened up, the idea is that, you know what, Opendi was arguing that, you know what, men in our society and traditionally are prone to be polygamous. So we should just open up this. Let's stop pretending. And of course, she's wrong, as I come at it from a Christian worldview. But to say that the Christians would actually even dream of influencing this legislation, the state has the liberty to legislate for everyone to include, as you've noticed. Everyone is included, and the civil provision is provided for to allow for those that are non-religious, for example, the atheists or the nuns, the agnostics, those that don't ascribe to any religion, where should they be married? The civil arrangement allows them to do that. Obviously, it is very strict. It is monogamous as currently as it is. So even the church finds it as its backbone. The church would not object to the civil marriage per se. But now that it opens up to be potentially polygamous, then there is a question of whether the church should object to what the state wants to do. If the state is okay to do that, the Christian marriage has a very wonderful opportunity here. What do I mean? As you notice that the Christian marriage, apart from the civil marriage, is the only monogamous amongst the religious marriages, which suggests that the Christian marriage or Christianity is distinct amongst all this, without even a legislation, because this idea of monogamy is not given by the state. In fact, the state only regulates in accordance with your religious precepts. So Baha'i, the state will not guide the Baha'i on how to marry as Baha'i. The state will regulate legally, but allow the Baha'is to do the Baha'i thing, the Muslims to do the Muslim thing. So the Christians have a wonderful opportunity, if indeed Christians are distinct, as it shows. So if Christianity propagates a monogamous marriage, then Christianity has an opportunity to show this and persuade the rest of Uganda that it is the best arrangement. And I do believe in that. I don't think it is a matter of legislation. I would let the state legislate in every way they want. You asked the question, who gives marriage? Who is in charge of marriage? I would ask the question, who is in charge of life? God gives life. The state legislates on this, on the dignity, the right of human beings, that you can't kill a human being, even though it is said in the Bible and other religious books. The state has authority, has been mandated. Actually, those of us that read the Bible, we acknowledge that the state is an instrument of God to give order and rule of law in a country, in a jurisdiction, in a nation, amongst people. So the state will even assaulting someone, stealing something, the state regulates by law, legislates. So as far as marriage is concerned, the state can legislate. And I think if the state wishes to open up the civil marriages, and I think they're going to do that, they're going to successfully do that, because look here, the beneficiaries are such people that would like to have the fluidity to have marriage be anything. And again, the world is moving like that. I don't approve, but I acknowledge that the state has the power to do that, especially a secular state like ours. On the prenuptials, which I acknowledge are problematic, coming in from a different legal jurisdiction, we are borrowing it. To some extent, I would want to say, like Arthur raises, it makes marriage look more contractual than covenantal. Again, the idea of covenant is customary or Christian. That's where it comes in. Elsewhere, it is a contract or religious, sorry. Covenantal is religious or customary. When you bring in the civil, of which the state has to legislate for everybody, when you bring in the civil and accommodate everybody, then you have to allow for such. What does that mean? Prenuptials, simply put, as you said, you sit together before you get married and you both declare what you have. And you see, we only look at what we have in terms of material. But I want to give an example. When I got married to my wife, I was in debt. I had a loan with the bank. I had to declare that. In fact, I had 2 running loans. And I had to tell her that. And I told her, it's going to take us this number of years to get out. And if she was on, she would tell you that this month we are going debt-free. But she has been on the journey with me because she knew. So it's not only declaring the proper.
Can you still hear Raymond? I can't seem to hear him.
No.
Raymond.
Sorry, somebody was trying to call me and interrupted. Am I back?
Yes, we can
Am
hear
I back?
you.
Sorry,
Yes.
I need to conclude. So in our marriage vows, we say, all I am, I give to you, and all I have, I share with you. Now, those of you that are spiritual, there's something we don't mention. Now, you have Uganda, but some people
Yes.
can come with certain stuff spiritually or culturally. That declaration is, I am sharing with you, I am giving to you even stuff that you can't see. I am sharing it with you. Would it be necessary? Because marriage can be invalidated or nullified on the grounds of non-declaration of stuff that can be problematic for another spouse. If you don't dissent, if you don't declare that in your family you're night dancers, and all of a sudden you begin doing funny things, someone can wake up and say, you know what, I was never told about this. And the law provides for such. So prenuptials are more particularly about possessions, material possessions. And the idea, it is not, for example, clause 70, section 75 after 74, I think. No, that is about the divorce or dissolution for just one reason. But on the prenuptials, it is in the event. It is not like it should happen. It is in the event. Whether you don't have prenuptials or you have them, that event can come. And so the legislation, I think, provides to have harmony. For example, I'll give 2 examples. Let's say, some of you know Kuluthum, not so? The woman called Kuluthum. She used to be married to a Muslim cleric. Yes, Muzata. She used to be married to Muzata. Muzata was a Muslim cleric who definitely had some possessions, not so?
Yes.
Once widowed, Kuluthum is left with some property as a widow. If you marry Kuluthum, should you also benefit from what was left for her by her late husband, now that you're the husband? Prenuptials provide that when you come in, because I could strategically see what Muzata left for his wife, and I come marry Kuluthum, and I come to benefit, to enjoy. It could be okay, but it can be problematic because then that allows, and we have seen it in other places. Famously, we know one footballer who knew that some models or some, beauty, some ladies would marry a football star to target finances. And we see this happening all over. And why is this necessary? The state is an instrument of God, even to regulate our selfishness, to legislate against our selfishness. Human beings by nature, we are selfish. And a Christian marriage, it's expected that Christians shouldn't be selfish. But Christians being majority of the Ugandans, as per profession, apparently 84, 85%, who are the selfish people? The majority of the divorces, are they by Muslims? Are they by Hindus? Are they by the nuns? Are they by the what are they called? The traditional marriages, which are polygamous. They are not likely to divorce. It's the Christians that are actually divorcing, and the Christians are fighting over property. Not only them, but they're the majority, which implies that the selfishness is not dealt with. Now, finally, because I've said much, finally, on the dissolution of marriage on the basis of one clause, I think on one sole reason, I think we need to look at the section that follows, section 75, that talks about the court having to establish beyond reasonable doubt that even this one reason. So the court is removing the need for two reasons, to allowing if there is one reason, and irretrievably is ambiguous. It's broad. There could be any reason, like my brother Arthur said. Someone could just say, like Jesus comes and says, no, apart from infidelity. Back in the day, people would just say, she no longer cooks well. She no longer looks nice. I thought she was this, but she doesn't have this. All those reasons they could give. She's shorter than I expected, blah, blah, blah. Jesus says, apart from infidelity. And I do agree with Jesus more than anybody. Now, the reason of it irretrievably reconcilable, or let me check what I read it was. Is 75. It is removing the need for two reasons, but allowing one reason. And then in section 75, it says the court shall, in deciding whether or not a marriage has irretrievably broke down, have regard to all relevant facts regarding the conduct and circumstances of the parties. Meaning, it will not just happen. There will have to be a process. There will have to be investigations. And obviously, with or without this, bringing it down to one sole reason or one sole ground, we are seeing it happening. Maybe the bigger question we need to ask ourselves, that even without this bill, we are seeing a breakdown in marriage. To my Christian brothers and sisters, because I am a Christian, I am a monogamous man. I have been married before and widowed and remarried. I only stick to one marriage. I do believe we have an opportunity in letting this legislation pass, and we stand out because we have a mandate not to be witnesses through legislation, but through life. We have to be witnesses through life. Our marriage is a proper witness of monogamy. Isn't it the very Christians who sit in the pews and the chairs of the church, who sing the hymns, who carry Bibles, that are marrying and having side dishes, or are preferring the traditional path, because the traditional path allows them to have multiple partners? So what challenge do I give us? Ultimately, it is not legislation that is going to influence the public perspective on whether marriage should be monogamous or not. It is what we Christians model in accordance with what the Bible teaches. Indeed, the Bible teaches from Adam onwards. Of course, the Bible is full of imperfect, fallen marriages, whether it is Abraham, apart from his son Isaac, who married only one, Rebecca, whether it is Jacob, that famous family, the Israelites, or David, the greatest king, man, save for Solomon, who had 1,000 of them. The Bible is full of imperfect marriages, but that is descriptively. Prescriptively, God has designed it to be one man and one wife.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. Thank you very much for your submission. If you're just joining us, this is iTiS World of Worship. iTiS is in truth and in spirit. We have a Q&A session every Monday. We have topical discussions as well, such as today's about the marriage bill. Between 6 to 8 p.m. Feel free to join us on any other day. It's a Christian fellowship, so we don't have a problem. We welcome everybody. Yeah, so this is being recorded. For those who missed the first part, it will be on YouTube. The link will be shared through the person who shared this invitation with you. Yeah, so far, our two of our panelists have spoken. Arthur has spoken, as well as Raymond Bukenya. So I'm left with one more panelist. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to say something, please raise your hand. That's how we do it here. But also, if you cannot speak, in case you have background noise, just type in the chat. I'll be able to read the questions and put them to the panelists. So Isaiah, I want to hand over to you. Again, same question. Just respond to Arthur and Raymond. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and praise God. I hope you are well. It's good to see you here. Moderator, I will not, I pray that I don't even take a lot of your time, because there are many people here, and we pray that at least everyone contributes. I think I would like first of all to thank Arthur. He has done a good work, of course, from his profession of the legal fraternity. And then my friend Raymond is is experienced in these marital issues, so it's good to have those experts actually speak before me. Now, moderator, if you will allow me, I am just going to give an attempt like I usually do. First of all, for me, marriage is a legal sexual relationship between men and women. So it is important for people here to understand that when we talk about marriage, we are emphasizing legality. We are not talking about love.
You're not talking about love?
No. We are not talking about
that.
we are emphasizing love. And in fact, Arthur made mention of it because he said that marriage is a point of law. That was one of his first introductory statements. And I actually agree with him. Marriage has nothing to do with love. Love is secondary. Love is what is between you and your spouse. And marriage does not look at that. Marriage is a legal sexual relationship between a man and a woman. So when we talk about marriage, the problem with married people is that they sometimes go to the law with the perspective of love. And the law has nothing to do with love. So what we're dealing with here is the law versus love. And so I think for me that is very important to note. And even others who will contribute, they must think about those things. When we talk about marriage, are we emphasizing love, or we are discussing the legality of two people living together? That is why Arthur told you that you can't claim to be married because you had a child with so and you have lived together for the past 30 years. No, you are not married according to the law, because marriage is a legal affair. Marriage is a legal affair. Now, moderator, if you will allow, I will also go back to the Bible to remind Bible readers that the marriages that you see in the Bible are under a particular covenant setting, which actually is borne by the Hittites. And those marriages are covenantal. And the settings of those covenants, there is always the superior and the inferior. In that covenant of marriage, the superior of every marriage in the Bible is the man, aka the husband, and the inferior is the woman, known as the wife. Now, that if you are reading the Bible fairly, you will see it. You will see it. And that also brings me to the other worry of Arthur and other Christians of this bill attempting to turn marriages into contractual. But when you look at the covenants of the Bible, the marital covenants of the Bible, you will again notice that contractual marriages are implied in the aspect that the man is always in charge of that marriage. He decides when it starts, and the man alone decides when it ends. So I had Arthur was worried that that this bill, if it becomes an act, will simplify divorce, and yet Christians do not actually want divorce to be a simple thing. Well, in the Bible, divorce is very simple. The bill of divorce in the book of Deuteronomy is given carelessly. For instance, moderator, if you allow, I'll read you a verse here in the Bible. And I know most of the people here are Bible readers. They will try to help me with that. Because Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1 says that when a man takes a wife and marries her, marriage has happened. If then she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some indecency in her, he shall write her a bill of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house. Then she shall depart from his house. That's simple. That's simple. So such reasons that Arthur is worried with are actually in his Bible. Why? Because the marriage in the Bible, from the Old Testament, is not permanent. It's not permanent. It's just not permanent. So that is my second thing, and I think people should think about those things. We could go on and on with those verses. Another thing is Christians should also be fair, because the Bible does not condemn polygamy. Well, I've been reading the Bible for years. I have not found a place where polygamy is condemned. Like other sins are actually condemned. The Bible doesn't
Does
have...
the Bible therefore condone? If it doesn't condemn, does it therefore condone?
No, it doesn't condone, but the saints and the fathers of the faith of Christians, many Christians will refer to those fathers when they are reading the Bible, are polygamous. So I don't know whether that is condoning or not. I can't state here that the Bible condones polygamy. I can only say that the Bible does not condemn polygamy. It doesn't. So, well, and biblically, monogamy is smuggled into biblical texts. It's not there. So basically, the Bible is open on both monogamy and polygamy. But the good thing, Christians are here and theologians are here. They will help us. They will help us clarify those things. So really, Christians must start from the in-house before they go to the marketplace. They need to first deal with their book and demonstrate those things, because this whole thing, till death does us apart, that oath is not in the Bible as we take it normally when we're getting married in Christian churches. It's not in the Bible. There's nothing like till death does us apart. Okay. Then the whole thing of monogamy is can only be referred to in Matthew chapter 19. Didn't God create one? Why did he create one? He wanted a generation that fears God. We don't know which one was talking about, but of course we can go into those texts. I'm not trying to dismiss those verses. All right. Then the whole idea of divorce, you can't see it is scattered all over the Old Testament. But when it gets into the Malachi, then we have that verse, God hates divorce. Well, and we know God hates a number of things. But anyway, that can be for another day, or if not even for today. But moderator, I wanted, first of all, for people here to understand that the Bible does not condemn polygamy. That's one. Number two, first I said that marriage is a legal affair, not a love affair. People must understand, because the reason that's why marriage is a legal affair, it is because in marriage we have three elements. Let me just call them elements. Number one, we have the people, and then we have the property, and between the people and the property we have the policy. those are the three elements that constitute marriage. And the reason why
property and what? And policy.
and policy. The reason as to why we are having all this hullabaloo by lawyers and courts and politicians, the whole thing is about that people cannot control themselves with the property. So they need a law that is going to help control people around and against property. So that's why you have these bills, you know. Marriages that do not have property are okay, are fine. They don't even need this law. The absence of property cultivates some kind of love, and then those are loving marriages. But marriages with property really need the law, and I support these marriages to be legislated, because marriage is a legal affair. Marriage is a legal affair. Yes, and I thought that was also very important. Then finally, finally, Mr. Moderator, we have also to we have to ask ourselves two things. Number one, when we talk about marriage, are we at the same time talking about love? Now that the Christians are preachers of the gospel, and they argue in their gospel that we are not saved by the law, but we are saved by grace through faith alone, why would Christians seek help from the law they have castigated in their fundamental doctrine of the gospel? Why are Christians suspending the two greatest laws? You shall love your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Why are they suspending love for the law? Number one. Number two, why? Finally, moderator, what is wrong with the government having its version of marriage, the Christians having their version of marriage, and the Muslims having their version of marriage, etc.? Why is the government, like Arthur said, why is the government giving with one hand and taking with another? What business has the government that is not Christian got to do with the Christian marriage? Why should I, a Christian, register my marriage with an entity which is not Christian? Why? Well, the reason is clear, because whatever we do, whatever we say, the government, the pagan government, is still in charge of the sacred marriage of Christians. And the reason for that, it is because while Christianity is founded on love, marriage is founded on the law, and therefore it can only be defended and in the custody of legal structures. Now, these are the problems. Thank you, moderator.
Yeah, I want to give a chance, before I open up the floor, I want to give a chance to Arthur to respond, and then probably Raymond, the other two panelists, in that order. After that, I'll open up the floor. Peter, I see your hand is up, but let the panelists go first. Arthur? Uganda
Thank
being
you,
a secular
moderator.
state, why do you want to Christianize marriage if Uganda is a
Thank you,
secular?
moderator.
Start from that point,
That's
yes.
a very important worldview of Uganda being a secular state. I agree with you. Under our constitution, I think Article 7 is clear that Uganda shall not adopt a state religion. That means that we are open to all. But also you must recognize that the constitution is not read in part, it must be read in whole. The government or the state must legislate according to the aspirations, norms, and customs of its people. And we all know that these are what we hold dear to what we believe in. One, as Christians, we have our norms, our customs, and aspirations. Muslims, they have their norms, all these. So even when the government is a secular state, it's not working that in isolation of the norms and aspirations. Article 126 is very clear, and other articles that we can talk about. So when they are going to legislate, they must look at what are the norms, aspirations, and customs of the people. My faith is my belief, is my custom, is my aspiration. I aspire to be like my savior. It's my aspiration. So when the government is going to legislate, it must have me in consideration, not what they have picked from all over or what they think they want with another intention. So that is very fundamental. And secondly, when we have the government, you see, the reason why we need the law, like any other society, the reason why footballers need goalposts is that everyone will have where they are going to shoot. You can imagine 22 men without any goalposts. Each one picks a ball and goes to direction X. They are supposed to give us how we are supposed to run. I believe the laws in the Bible were given to help the Israelites transmit from the land of slavery, which was not only physical, but on their mind, to help them to adopt the new culture that they were aspiring to get to. Even when we come to the grace is a liberty. And the Bible is saying that the liberty is actually the law of liberty. Even the grace itself, I'm compelled by love. That's a law. There is a law of love. So we can't run away from laws. They are all over us. Even you as a Christian, you have a law that is hemming you. So let's not look at it as if the government is trying to create something that is outside the box, but even we have things that we are following. I liked the priests on the page is called the priest Mutabazi. He has brought out clearly the three elements of the people, the property, and the policy. And when we are doing this analysis of these laws, and I believe God has put us at a time as this to open up our minds to things that we need to think for today, but also for tomorrow. When we look at the people, how do we want our people to be directed? When we go to church, we are called the sheep. The sheep always need a shepherd. We need to be told where we are supposed to go, where we want our family to go. You know, this bill is actually targeting the family. When they tried the homosexuality thing here and it didn't work out, they are coming with a different strategy because they know what we stand for as Uganda is the family, which is the backbone of our society. If we break the family, then we'll have no moral authority to stand up and stand for what we believe in. And if we don't build the family, it is going to be broken. So whichever theological position, worldview that you stand up, I think it is important for us to not look at where we are standing now, but where we want our society to be. And I think it's a very big aspiration as Christians. Where do we want society to go? So we look at our people, we look at the properties that we have. One, they say that he who pays the piper determines the tune. And I think it is important for us, the church, to understand who is supposed to hold the properties. If it is the family, How do we establish the family to be anchored on firm foundation, to hold the properties, to direct what the nation will do? And our strong position as a country is the family. If we erode the family, we are gone as Uganda and we'll be like any other country on planet Earth. Like I said, I might be theologically wrong, but those are my aspirations. One, as a Christian, as a believer, and as a person that believes that this nation must take a different direction. I thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Though I think the bill still upholds heterosexual marriage, I think there's a clause for that. Basically, marriage, it still insists marriage is between a man and a woman, but of course there are other problematic areas. I'm going to give a chance to, I'm going to open up the floor, but let me give Raymond a chance as a panelist to first also give his thoughts on the other two panelists' submissions, and then Peter first, then William Kutesa. So Raymond, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. I'm glad we can have a conversation of this nature. And I believe that the society needs to have it. And perhaps the guys that are working on the bill, both parliamentarians and other stakeholders, should consider having similar conversations. Anyway, Priest Isaiah, Mutavazi, you did mention the fact that you don't see the Bible talking about monogamy. And I beg to differ, because that's what the Bible talks about from the beginning. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one. And by nature, when a man and a wife become one, can we kind of just think about what it means when you bring in another woman? And obviously, again, in context, just like my brother Arthur was saying, we cannot read the law in isolation. We have to read it as a whole. Think about the rest of Scripture in regard to what women and men are. From the beginning, when God is creating man, he creates us in his image. Hence, there's the idea that we are alike in his image. There's a sense of equality. When it comes to marriage, you did actually allude to the fact that from the Hittite version, which is a Gentile, if you would say heathen version, there is inferiority and superiority. The Bible talks about it as headship and submission without necessarily referring to an inferior, but a weaker vessel. The wife is a weaker vessel to the male, but marriage is more of a calling in that context, because Ephesians, the Bible talks about it as Christ loved the church, so a man loves his wife. And the insistence on a man loving his wife, a man leaving his parents and cleaving to his wife, and the two becomes one. Yes, we see a fallen nature of marriage throughout Scripture. However, the New Testament is very, very clear again, and it insists, especially when Paul is instructing on who can be a leader in the church. He insists that it should be a man that has modeled faithfulness in marriage to one wife, a husband of one wife. And that means that this is normal. This should be what men do. Not that it will be a unique situation, that, oh, this is a man, the only man that has one wife is the man that can lead us. No, a man that has modeled that, and therefore there can be several leaders. Of course, Paul was not suggesting that that one would be the leader of all believers everywhere. No, because there are going to be many churches in different places. There will be struggles in family, but there will be men that have modeled that faithfulness to the godly design. And if we're going to look to God as the standard, he has set a design. And by nature, even when you look at Christianity as its outlook in Uganda or elsewhere, whether in Africa or across the globe, there is a lot of abuse, there is a lot of failure. And normally people will judge Christianity on the basis of failure. But it's important to look at the original design. What is the standard that God has set? What is the standard the Bible prescribes? And so finally, I'll talk about, there's something that was left out. I've had law and love in reference to marriage. I would love to see that truth is also brought in, because truth plays a major place in what we call marriage. And that's why when there have been lies or withholding of information, there can be problems. Arthur did say that the law should be designed for the benefit, the norms and aspirations of the people. May I submit that actually, by default, a Ugandan is an African before they are a Christian? I want to argue that and insist that by African, one can confidently argue that Africans traditionally, customarily are polygamous. And a law that allows for polygamy is not contravening anything. It is actually providing for Africans what they normally are. However, if you bring in the Christian worldview, which I wouldn't say is a foreign worldview, but rather a standard. If I'm to argue as a Christian, I believe that whether it's Mohammedan, Bahaian, customary, Hindu, there is a place for truth. Truth is an arbiter. It is a standard. It is exclusive by nature. I do believe it is objective and absolute. Hence, if there is truth about marriage, then everything else must be subject to that. And so when you're talking,
Raymond has dropped off again. I think somebody tried to call him, Raymond. But I think you had made your point, Raymond.
sorry,
So
somebody tried
you
to call me.
dropped off. Just
I was saying
conclude your
that
point.
Christianity has already influenced. Thank you very much. The Judeo-Christian worldview has already influenced. That's why by nature, even the description of marriage in our constitution is male, female, and monogamous. However, these inclusions are a reflection of the secular nature of our state. And by mandate, the state is meant to legislate for everyone, not the preferences just of the majority. And why the legislation is important, because the majority can be powerful, but the minority can be vulnerable. And legislation is meant for both. It's meant to protect both the powerful and the vulnerable. And that's why, for me, the argument remains that the Christian, yes, your model of marriage is the standard that God has given. Prove it, show it, model it. You don't have to put it into legislation. I would even dare to say that Christians don't be homosexual. You don't need the legislation for that. You don't be. Christians model it, cause everyone to desire it. I think it was Blaise Pascal who said that. Show everyone it is good and true, that they will desire it and want it. You make people struggle as Christians. You know very well, a Christian boss employing Muslim secretary, married boss will have an affair with a Muslim secretary, and she will give in, she's okay. But then she will question, this man is married, he has a wife, but he's having an affair with me, and I have to protect my job. So Christians, if you claim that your marriage model is a standard, and on the basis of the truth, because if yours is the standard, then everything else falls. That's the exclusive nature of truth. So I want to dare and say, let's not look to legislation. And like my brother, I think, Priest, you said, let's look internally. Are we modeling what we want into the law? If we aren't, then let's go back to the law that is actually not up for amendment. The legislation for marriage is in the Bible, and it's not up for amendment. Let's stick to that. Let's model that. Let's show the world that it is true and it is good, and they will desire it. Put it in the law. We shall amend. This is the current amendment. The current law is from 2009. 15 years later, we want to amend it. It means that we will keep amending. That's what we do with the law anyway. Thank you very much, moderator, and everybody.
Thank you, Raymond. Because of time, I need to open up the floor. If you'd like to say something, please raise your hand. I already have 2 hands up from Peter and William. So let me start with Peter. I'll go to William.
Hello,
and then yes, Peter.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. I'll begin with page 13. Page 13, we have definition. Hello?
The marriage bill?
Yes, page 13 of the marriage bill, 2024. We have a continuation of definition of terms, and I'm intrigued by the definition of marriage according to the bill. I shall read as is. Marriage means the voluntary union between a man and a woman, celebrated in a manner recognized under this act. Now, according to that definition, there are 3 elements. Number 1, it is heterosexual. marriage, whenever you say marriage, you're speaking of something heterosexual. Number two, it is voluntary. Number three, it is legal. Question: do the two, voluntariness and legality, do the two happen simultaneously, or one happens after the other?
Peter, it's a
That's
question
my.
for who? Who of the panelists?
I think to the three. So to the three, I cannot
Want all of them
single
to
out.
attempt that. Okay.
Yeah. Now
You have another
that is
question?
yeah, that is my first observation. Now, another observation. Still, you have said that one of the presenters, I think, Council Arthur Ayorekide, yes, Council Ayorekide, clearly stated that the statement "I am married" is a legal statement. Question: then when does it become a Christian statement? Number two, or number three, until death do us part, was one presenter mentioned that statement. I think it was still Council Ayorekide. Until death do us part. Question: is this a legal or a Christian statement?
Okay, thanks, Peter. In the interest of time, I think we've got your questions. Clearly, the two of them are directed to Arthur. Let me have William, Kutesa, and then I'll go to Susan. And then I'll allow the panelists to respond. William, please unmute.
Yes, thank you. I want to be brief. I felt the need to respond to Mr. Mtabazi Tumwine in line with a few scriptures that he mentioned. One, I felt it was misleading. Some of his comments were misleading. Number one, he said monogamous is smuggled into the Bible, and I think Raymond has hinted a little bit about it. I will not spend a lot of time. Genesis 2:24 spells it out. A man leaves his father and mother and meets the wife, not wives. And that's the same imperative we find in Matthew 19:5, and it's the same we find in Mark 10:8. So it cuts across. So it gets to the point also, number two, when he said polygamy is not condemned. And you responded that, does it mean that it is condoned? And I felt we needed also to tighten that bolt that polygamy is against the word of God. Because it's easier for us to cite people like David, people like Abraham, and all those fellows. But when we get back and we read into the law, specifically Deuteronomy 17:17, for men like David, kings were barred by God from amassing wealth, but also getting several women. They just disobeyed. And so in scripture, there is what we call descriptives and prescriptives. I think someone also hinted about it. So there is what is described, possibly for me and you to learn from. It's not prescribed for you to try again. So we need, while reading the Bible, we need to read it as the full counsel, not just handpicking. And when you think about myself married to a woman, even when I'm leading a church, think about sections like those who should qualify to lead the church. In Titus, they must be men. Actually says a husband of one wife, Titus 1:6. Same command given in 1 Timothy 3, a husband of one wife, not wives. So I just felt the need for us to look deeply into those areas, Mr. Mtabazi, and whoever is listening, because it might be misleading for someone to hear that polygamy, I can fly with it. It can be
Thank you,
misleading.
William.
Thank you so much.
I think you've made your point. I'm sure Mutabazi will respond to you. Let me have Susan, and then I'll have the panelists respond. Susan, please unmute.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Susan, and I'm an interested party in this discussion. I would like to start by reminding us about a previous speaker's comments where he said there's a place of truth, and the majority can be powerful and the minority be vulnerable. And I think we need to also have that at the back of our minds as we dissect the provisions of this bill. I would like to start by saying that this bill, there was a hint somewhere, this bill actually does not in any way try to smuggle in the question of unions between sexual minorities. It is very clear, and it reiterates the fact that marriage is between one man and one woman, something that Uganda as a country has historically lived by. Secondly, this bill is not introducing anything that is new, completely not. We are operating under the Marriage Act of 1904, which already had clauses, including we are operating under the Marriage Act of 1904, which was also passed on to us by the colonialists with a Divorce Act of the same time. So the fact that we have clauses on separation and marriage and divorce in this bill is not introducing anything new. And I think we need to know that marriages will end. It is how they end that we should be prepared for. Will they end in death, till death do us part, which as Christians we believe in, or in the event that they do not end like that? If we are to think again, somebody was emphasizing that family first, to what benefit is it for us not to think about how marriages end if they end in divorce or in separation? What happens to that family unit, to your spouse, to your acquisitions as a family, to your children whom you have begotten from that marriage? I think we need to actually accept the reality that not all marriages will end in death as we as Christians intend for them to be.
Some will end in tears. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Some will end in tears. Like
Some have ended in tears, and they will graduate into separation or into divorce. And the reality of life is that we need to be prepared for it as a country, as Christians, as families. Otherwise, you're not prepared for it. And then what happens to your spouse whom you once loved, to the children you've begotten, to the property you've begotten as a couple in that marriage? We need to be prepared for that. So I absolutely support the clauses that speak about how property in marriage should be distributed between partners when eventually if things go south. Again, as has been hinted here, all marriages are contracted on behalf of the state. The Marriage Act has always dealt with that, and it is important for the state to have an eye over even matters that are managed by faith-based institutions, including our Christian denomination, because there are many cases of men and women of God actually misleading Christians, and there needs to be some kind of measure to ensure that even as we follow our Christian faith and our churches and our men and women of God, that there is no gap for abuse, for breach, or for creating vulnerability, which is very possible. I would
thank you,
also like
Susan. In the interest of time.
Sure. The bill is
Sorry?
Yes, the bill is interdenominational. If you look at it, it has consolidated the various marriage laws that we have currently. The Hindu law, the Baha'i faith, the Christian marriages, and also brought in the issues of customary marriages into the same bill. And I think for us as Christians, we should be very concerned about clauses that affect some of the things that we have, I think, in the past believed in. Right now, the question of monogamy, I have been in conversations where there's a feeling that monogamy is, which as Ugandans, this whole discussion of is Uganda monogamous, should that be the standard of marriage? Right now, we have a clause that attempts to make civil marriages potentially polygamous. I feel that is something which as Christians we need to pay keen attention to, because why would I enter a civil marriage with the intention of it being polygamous, only for the option of it to be converted into a polygamous marriage? Why should it remain there for me? For me, I think some of these things we really need to pay very serious attention to them.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much.
I think you've made your points, quite a number of them, but very well stated. I want to give a chance to the panelists to respond. There's so many questions and issues that have been raised. I'll go in the same order. Arthur first, then Raymond, and then Priest Isaiah. Arthur?
Thank you, moderator. I will start with Susan. You raised very important points, but statement that nothing has been sneaked in, I think is not accurate, because we have not been having conversion in our marriage, in our laws. We have not been having presumptions of marriage. There are so many things that have really been planted in. And like how you ended is that we have to pay particular attention to the things that the government is giving with one hand and taking away from the other. And me, I'm particularly very excited that the church has started, not the church, the structures, but we the believers, we have started paying attention to what is going on in parliament and other things around us. So to me, I think this is a very big plus that we are discussing this. Peter was asking about the marriage being a legal statement. When does it become Christian? And when, until death do us apart, is that legal or Christian? One, I think someone here, I think it was the priest who said that the law is looking at setting boundaries for you on how you're going to play in that pitch called marriage. And so what happens inside is now going to be your responsibility. The moment you get outside, the law will get you. But the law might say, okay, play as much as you want, but the moment you have excesses, you will be beyond the boundary you're supposed to be stopping. That's what we say, that the marriage is actually legal. So marriage, why it is legal is that it is governed by the law. When it becomes, when we take it to church, the church now governs us, because the church is telling us, please, as a married man under monogamous marriage, you're supposed to stick to your wife. As a married woman, supposed to stick to your husband, love one another. Those are things that are being imparted to us. And because we know that we are not only doing it for the government, but we have a covenantal relationship with our God. Therefore, our marriage becomes a covenantal relationship. The government is just helping us to keep on the boundaries. So the marriage, yes, it is a legal entity, but also it is a covenantal entity that we get in with. Maybe Raymond will remind me those, we enter it reverently. There are those other words that I used there that I have forgotten, without being forced. So it is something that we enter into covenantally. So when we say, until death do us apart, that means that you're committing to God, because that comes from that I am married, I will commit to my wife, and therefore it is only death that will separate me. But if you want it to be a legal entity, then you can go and divorce your wife if you want to be ruled by the law. So the boxes are set for you to play properly so that the game is fair, free, and fair to all the players. Thank you. I think I would also agree with what William brought forth. I think he brought out clearly those descriptive and prescriptive elements of the Bible that we needed to pay attention to. I thank you.
Before you go, there's a comment from Sam Karugava. He asks, can't the church come up with its own constitution? And there's a quote, there are quotes around constitution that governs marriage, like the provincial constitution of the church, and we all abide by this. Is it possible?
We can legislate on what we want to be governed, but it must be subject to the law of the land. So you can govern yourselves on how you want to be led, But if it goes beyond what the government, for example, if you want, say, as a faith, we have allowed that our girls of 15 need to be married off, the government will raise up in arms because there is a law that is the boundaries that I talked about. So whatever, like you have a company, if you run a company, it must be in the law. You have a constitution as a company, which is articles and memorandum of association. But if it is going to infringe on the rights of the minority, the majority suppressing the minority, the constitution, the law of the land will stand in, which is the Companies Act.
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. Let me go to Raymond. Raymond, you can respond to, there's a wide range of issues raised. You just feel free to pick one or
Absolutely.
two. And
I won't go to all of them, but I will even go as far as the first question that was put in the chat. Polyandry is not provided for in our law. It's largely patriarchal, and so it is polygamy that is being considered. In fact, as Council Arthur said earlier, marriage was open to polygamy, and I think that's the language that is being used, open to. So it might not be polygamous at the start, but it is open to, hence allowing for polygamy. The statement is not necessarily making polygamy legal, but opening way for it. Quickly, to till death do us part. That statement, largely the marital vows are a blend of cultural and biblical values. We want marriage. There's a sense in which marriage, even without, remember guys, we were marrying people here. People are getting married before Christianity came here, okay? So let's not think that all of a sudden Christianity brought order to marriage or marriage. Christianity is not even 200 years old in Uganda or in most parts of the world. And so I'm not saying that Christianity has no authority over marriage. I'm actually saying that we need to be aware that human beings, Africans, Ugandans, have had a sense of what is the oath as far as marriage is concerned. Of course, with patriarchy at play, the rich, the powerful. I have a very Karamoja. I have Karamoja at my heart. I love Karamoja so much. I lived and worked there for 7 years. And I know very well, I saw places where a man had 35, 30. I think that time that guy had 38 wives. But because he was rich and powerful, he had no cows, because in Karamoja, marriage is about cows. He had the cows to get the next woman. And he had the full home where it's called the Manyata, where each one of them was living. Not that he was putting them far apart, living far apart, but he had this area where all his women were. And he was so wealthy. So polygamy allows for the wealthy, the powerful, and again maintains that place where men patriarchally will always be considered more superior than women. And so even the sneaking in, the allowing for polygamy is problematic. And that's why you go back to the Bible that talks about being made in God's image and valuing the other, and the men should be giving themselves for the women that they've chosen to marry, as Christ gave himself for the church. So even in the face of difficulty, the man has to give himself painfully in a patriarchal setup, as you will hear. But till death do us part, among the other parts of the vows. This is the conclusion, but it comes before that. It talks about God. In the vows I made, I talk about God being my witness and helper till death do us part. Death, one person has suggested, death can occur to the love, to the desires, to the feelings, to the wealth or property that may have brought you together even before someone dies physically. And they have said, you know what? And very well, many of you will know that before someone chooses to walk out of a marriage, they left a long time ago. It is just at that point that they actually do. What does that mean? That death, the vow suggests permanence. It is a statement alluding to permanence, as long as both shall live, all right? But it is true also, and the laws provide for that violence, domestic violence, has been grounds for separating people. and for some people, you know, totally going apart. You make vows of till death do us part, and then all of a sudden you realize and impotence is the problem. You know, in the law there is provision for impotence, and there's no provision for say barrenness if a woman is failing to give birth. Some of you that have gone through the law. So in African society, if a woman is barren, and as they will say a woman is barren, but also they've come to learn that sometimes it's the man failing to make the woman pregnant. There's provision in the customary marriage for a man to take another wife. But in the law, it's provided for that if people get married and then they discover the man is unable to consummate sexually, then there's provision for the marriage to end. So there is many grounds, and I'm not a proponent of the death of marriage, but I'm telling you that we know very well we cannot be oblivious. We cannot pretend that there's some death that happens. There's death that happens, and we need to pay attention to that. Am I saying that when it happens? I think finally, Jesus says it very well. In Deuteronomy and in the law of Moses throughout, there's provision, for example, the Deuteronomy 24 that the priest read, Mutawazi. Jesus looks back to that and said, it was given to you that you can divorce on any grounds. But I tell you, if you've read the Sermon on the Mount, that greatest sermon that Jesus gave on divorce, he says, but I tell you, only on grounds of infidelity. And infidelity means that there's been a death in terms of that covenant. And so when we cannot only look at death in terms of life, in fact, one guy that I hate even to imagine that I'm going to refer to him, but when he was leaving his wife and taking another woman, a pastor, he said, "Mwagala twetebwesi, okwanga vows zigamba death till death do us part. Do you want us to first kill someone to die, then we can marry someone else?" And that's not what you want. But the truth is that there's a death that happens. Even in those vows, we acknowledge it. But the statement is a statement that alludes to permanence. I think I'll leave it there. For the provincial one, all constitutions in Uganda, the constitution of your organization, the constitution of any religious institution is subject to the supreme constitution of our country. And I think, but then for a Christian, you're going to come and say, but all constitutions in the world are fall under the supreme constitution, the word of God. And so that's a different conversation as far as the constitutionality is concerned.
Thank you, Raymond. I'll probably give you another chance. Priest Isaiah. William Kutesa responded, I think Susan and a couple of other people. Why are you misquoting the Bible and using it out of context? Prescriptive and descriptive. I think you followed that comment. Mm.
Yes, I did, and I apologize. But two things, moderator. Before you come to that, prescriptive and descriptive. First of all, Peter had a question on when does it become a Christian marriage, and I would like to communicate to Arthur here, and probably another lawyer who is on this call. Another Christian lawyer, let me be specific. Christians should go to court or to the government and argue for exclusivity. Because now that Arthur guided that the government legislates in accordance to its people, Christendom must band itself together, form a unified community, go to the government and negotiate an arrangement of itself that is peculiar to their needs. What I see in this bill, it has not even become an act. Government is giving with one hand and taking with another. What Christendom needs is to go there and negotiate like Muslims negotiated. when you look at the arrangement that Muslims have and the Hindu, the arrangement of the Hindu, it is not one and the same exactly 100% with that of the so-called Christians, which I call Christendom. So we need to go there and negotiate as a whole so that the constitution can legislate on our behalf, not on its behalf, because government is legislating on its behalf. And we have, we are going to be the ultimate losers when this bill becomes an act. I can assure you, we are going to be, because I know the whole idea with this so-called European and Western democracy, the whole idea here, the attack is on the family, first of all. It is on the family. And I am worried as a family man. Secondly, the attack is on heterosexual. And that is going to come very soon. This bill is just testing the waters. So Christendom should sit together, band itself together, have common values on this matter of marriage, which I actually doubt that Christendom has common values on this matter of marriage. I actually doubt. And the enemy who has divided us in the value system is going to win ultimately. So moderator, I wanted to throw that to Arthur and other experts that are dealing with this issue to go and think about that whole thing.
Okay.
So yeah, now
Back to the Bible.
Yes, back to the Bible. You see, Mr. Moderator, in hermeneutics, the rule of descriptive and prescriptive rule of Bible study is subjective, not objective. And I need people here to understand this. If you are using the rule of prescriptive and descriptive to dismiss or to assert that therefore the Bible condemns polygamy, then I will ask in Exodus chapter 20. They don't need to answer this. They just need to think about it. Exodus chapter 20 has got 10 laws. It has got 10 laws. My question, therefore, is law number 4, is it descriptive or prescriptive? Because I have no issue with law number 6 that says, you shall not kill. I think that is prescriptive, right? Brilliant. That is prescriptive. Verse 4 says, verse 8. Verse 8 says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall do, but on that day you shall not work. Is that descriptive or prescriptive? So that's the problem with the rule of prescriptive or descriptive in Bible study, in hermeneutics. It produces subjective exegesis. It is selective Bible study. I can take you through the Bible using prescriptive and descriptive, and then you see that it is upon a denomination, because there's what we call denomination theology, which is very subjective and very selective, creating doctrines of their belief. That is not objective Bible study. And that is something that the systematicians, theologians who have done systematic theology, need to review. It is our critique as the biblical theologians. So moderator, there is no condemnation of polygamy, and there is no condemnation to monogamy. The Bible does not say that the one who has one wife is wrong. He should marry another. And the Bible, please, and the Bible does not say that one who has 2 wives is wrong, must have one. The Bible is open. but you can choose to be selective, and that's all right. Really, it's really all
What,
right.
what would you say to Deuteronomy 17:17?
Deuteronomy
The king
17:17.
must not take many wives for himself because they will turn his heart away from the Lord. I think that
But
was
you
given
see,
by
moderator,
and
the Bible has not said that the king shall take one wife. Or is that prescriptive or descriptive?
Point of inquiry.
Many. It forbids many. So how many is many?
more
That's
than
the
one.
problem. Yeah.
More than
Oh,
one is many.
oh. Now, when God was accusing David for taking someone's wife, the problem was not that he wanted to take another wife, according to God. According to God, he asked David, if you wanted other wives, wouldn't I have given you? Why did you take someone's wife? Now that is God. Is that descriptive or prescriptive? The New Testament is talking about those who are in church leadership should be a man of one wife. How about those who are not in church leadership? Aren't they Christians? Is monogamy exclusive to those who are in church leadership? That is Timothy for you. Now, this is the problem. This is the thing that we need to look at. We don't isolate these verses and read them in isolation. We should read it as a whole, like the Arthur policy of the Constitution. You look at it as a whole. Same thing with the Bible. That's how we do objective Bible study. Finally, moderator, I would like to ask, as I wind up, are those in polygamous marriages who have believed Jesus Christ, will they go to heaven or not? Is the number of your wives, official wives? By the way, when we talk about polygamy, we're talking about officially married.
Not
Because
side dishes.
Polygamy is not adultery. Polygamy is not adultery. Are those in polygamy marriages, will they go to heaven or not? Number one. Number two, according to God, in Matthew chapter 22, verse 30, there is no marriage in resurrection. Isn't therefore marriage a social affair? And shouldn't we handle it socially? Why are we trying to spiritualize marriage? And we're even going to the government spiritually instead of going there socially. So, moderator, I thought these things are important for all of us to carefully and objectively think about.
Thank you, Isaiah. I'm sure you'll get some responses. I already see some hands up. Let me start with Peter. I think you had
Yes,
a
my
burning
point-
one. Then we'll go to
Yes,
Tom,
my
and then
point. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. My point of inquiry is on the terminologies being used by the panelists, prescriptive and descriptive. Do they mind to enlighten us in a layman's language what they mean? Thank you.
prescriptive and descriptive. Isaiah, briefly.
So I go first. I thought that the architects of that.
You just had the microphone. You just finished that. Very briefly, what do you mean by descriptive and prescriptive? You laymen, for us, we're not theologians like you.
Now, descriptive is when the Bible is telling you what Isaiah did in the Bible. And it is what Isaiah did. You can take lessons from what Isaiah did, but it is not telling you to do and be like Isaiah. Descriptive. Prescriptive is when the Bible is telling you what to do.
Clear, thank you.
Okay. Peter is sorted. I hope someone else has also benefited. Let me go to Tom. Your hand has been up for a while. Tom?
Yes, moderator. I'm sure my background is, my background is a little noisy. I won't take a lot of your time. Now, the Bible seems to tell us to love our neighbors, love humanity, share what we have with them, from land, cars, money, wealth, and whatever. Now, What is the problem with a man sharing his wife with another man? It is still sharing. What is wrong with a woman sharing what she calls her man with another woman? Isn't it selfishness? Is it not true that Christian proponents of monogamous marriages are propagating and furthering their selfishness and tying that in God's ways to tell people that God is against polygamy?
Okay, thank you,
Isn't
Tom.
it also true? Isn't it also true that the reason as to why this monogamy thing is being smuggled into Christendom, it is because of our own selfishness? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Tom has some questions. I would like to hear from someone who hasn't said a thing. Susan, I've seen your hand, but I want to hear from someone else. Who wants to give a general response or even ask a question? Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Just raise your hand, I'll give you a chance. Okay, I don't see anybody. Otherwise, Susan, you say something and then I'll go back to the panelists, starting with Arthur and then Raymond.
Yeah, I would like to just come back to something that seems to be taking root, and I think we need to be as objective and as honest as possible about this bill. This bill is very clear about the fact that it does not promote same-sex relations. It is even indicated very clearly in the interpretation section 2, where it says marriage shall be between a man and a woman. I think as we dissect it, these are the things that we need to be able to tell people, not that it is promoting same relationships. Otherwise, we lose any benefits that the bill may have. I would also like to say to this meeting that there was a comment about, as Christian, that there are no common values in Christendom. Consultations normally happen before a bill is drafted like this. And one of the areas that this bill has had consultation from is from cultural and religious fraternities, including the IRCU, which is interdenominational in Uganda. And just for a little bit of history, in the 10th Parliament in 2017, 18, 19, in that period, the Interreligious Council of Uganda, which has Pentecostal churches, born-again churches, Catholic, Anglican, etc., actually had come up with a common position on what they felt was a progressive marriage law, but also based on what each denomination's faith dictated as the standard for marriage under each faith. So I think we need to realize that we actually have commonalities in that area, regardless of the fact that we have different denominations. While we are speaking about the question of polygamy and the question of whether monogamy should actually be the standard, there have also been, in some spaces, voices saying, why don't we open up the space for polyandry? Because polygamy actually means more than one spouse. It is the polygyny which is actually right now promoted by the bill, that one man can have more wives. So while we are speaking about monogamy, it's not that, should it be the standard? It has been foisted on Christians. If we were having different marriages before Christianity came in, we need to be ready for that conversation to actually also come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. I think you've also partly answered Samuel Bakutana in the comments. He had said, can we balance the boat? Let's not only talk about polygamy, but also polyandry. Arthur, I want to bring you back. Can you just answer, the chat, if I find this. If a church refuses to wed a polygamous man or polygamy, will it be criminalized in the law as proposed? Arthur, you can start from that point and then you also give another, a general response to
Thank you.
the other issue.
You see, the deception does not come in full gear. Those who have, especially our theologians here, you know how deception comes in different varying degrees. And so we are starting with a little token that is going to graduate into a bigger thing. And let us not be blind by saying it is giving us this. We need to welcome it. We need to know who is behind this. We might talk all sweet things about it, but it is very important for us to understand who is behind what is happening now. The same thing that happened with in the Financial Amendment Institutions Act that was amended. We talked about introduction of Sharia law in our laws. People said it's just a simple thing. And now there's an introduction of a Sharia board in the Bank of Uganda. It is growing, it begins small. So let's not be, we talked about the religious policy. We said it's just innocent. We need to have where churches are going to register from, but it is bigger than that. So let's open our eyes to a bigger picture. Like I said, let's defend the family. If we don't defend it now, our children tomorrow will come when there is no foundation that we are going to have for the church. So now it is coming as a bill. Tomorrow it will be introduced. You will want to wed a couple who is polygamous and you refuse them, they take you to court. We have seen this happen in places where we are importing this from, and it is coming here. So if we don't open our eyes to the bigger picture, it comes as a little bait. We get to it, the bigger picture is introduced. Like I said, if we don't look at the bigger picture, we are going to be caught unaware. We think it's just an introduction of something that seems to be okay now, but it has a bigger picture behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Arthur. Well said. Well said. Before I go to Raymond, let me give someone a chance. Rabbi Hura, you've raised your hand. Since you haven't spoken, let me give you 1 minute to say something. Please unmute.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the question that Council Arthur has been also trying to. I think the law provides that the Christian marriage is monogamous. And the way I see this is that the church or the pastors will not be officiating in any other marriage apart from the Christian marriage. So I don't expect a priest to be officiating in a civil marriage once the Christian marriage has been provided for. So the question of whether the priest will be arrested or sued may not arise, because those who want civil marriage will go to the civil authorities, and those who want Christian marriage will go to the Christian authorities, and the Christian authorities, their marriage as provided for in the bill is monogamous. So that may not really arise.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
The law providing for Christian marriage, which also can be dissolved in a civil court, is also one of my concerns. Because you're providing for a Christian marriage, but it can be dissolved by a civil court. So what is the point? And it can actually also be converted. So the Christian marriage should be protected, and so that even those who celebrate and preside over it should be responsible for or have a say in how it ends. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well said. Well said. Let me go to Raymond. Time is not on our side. Raymond, your responses. There have been so many issues raised. Just pick one.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, moderator. I don't think I have to go over the responses or the questions again, because there's been quite a number of responses. And thank you.
I see the chats.
Yes, I've been looking at the chats as well. Yes, first of all, Rabbi Hura, thank you very much. I think that's the point I've been trying to make. Christians, your marriage is provided for exclusively. I mean, the Hindus can be having this conversation also. and saying, but that Christian marriage is causing us problems in society. People are seeing us badly. Muslims can complain and saying people are seeing us badly. The customary people can complain and say people are seeing us badly. The Christians are making us look bad. However, on this other side, every marriage is provided for exclusively. So Christians feel safe. No need to worry. Just prove that yours is the best. The state, as a secular state, is going to provide for everybody. And Christianity is not supposed to be imposed. Christian values are not supposed to be imposed anywhere. In the Bible, Jesus had the power to impose anything he would have. But no, he didn't. When he calls his disciples to follow him, he calls them that they may be fishers of men. When he's commissioning them, he tells them, stay. And at their commission, he tells them, wait here. The Spirit will come upon you and you will receive power and you'll be my witnesses in the different spaces, beginning from where you are and beyond to the ends of the earth. I'm just paraphrasing and summarizing. Friends, the power of the Christian witness and the core of the Christian society and the family being a core part of the Christian witness, its power does not lie in the legislation of the state. Throughout history, where Christians have wanted that legislation be as per their wish, and for them, inevitably, Christians have had to go into bed with the state, and that's what we see very often. Okay, all of a sudden, someone wants to legislate false teaching against sound teaching. That is not a function of the state. The state legislates for everybody. The church, the Christians who claim to have sound doctrine ought to teach that sound doctrine so that it is seen clearly. And that's what Jesus says. You know what? Let the tares and the wheat and the barley be. When the Lord of the harvest comes, he will show you. He will pluck them out and destroy them. So I'm insisting to saying that, you know what? Friends, Christians, your worries are not unfounded, but they are not necessary right now. Why? Surely the state is going to legislate, but its interest is for everybody. And you have to accept that in a secular setup. You have a mandate. Your challenge is on. The ball is on you. And I'm speaking like this, but I am a Christian. I am a married man to one wife, and that's what I uphold. And I know it's up to me to model that. I'm not going to expect the state to legislate for me. Let my Muslim neighbor see me modeling a good monogamous marriage. Let my traditionalist, customary married neighbor see me modeling that. And finally, I think this one is for another day. Mukuru Mutawazi, I'm requesting that you and I have a conversation
on biblical interpretation. Can we have that next Monday, Raymond? I know you've raised that issue. Let's have that on next Monday. We'll be here. And then further to your point, I think Samuel
Yes.
Bakutan has
If
said,
you use
yes, we must not
prescriptive,
impose,
if
but
you
we
try
must
to use the Ten
influence.
Commandments too, the Ten Commandments are super prescriptive. You shall is not a suggestion. Descriptive is as it is, as the word, a description of events. Prescriptive is when the Bible is very clear on what should be, in as much as even some prescriptive is implied in the description. You shall not do this. Okay.
Thank you,
So I
Raymond.
would
In
want
the
a
interest of
conversation
time,
on that.
I think you can have. Let's come back on Monday next week. We can talk about it. As you know how we roll. We have 2 minutes to go. Isaiah, I want to give you a chance also to respond.
No,
And then
no, moderator. Me, I don't even want to respond. I have already achieved.
To conclude
I have already achieved all that. But the whole thing is this, dear Christians, I am assuming that everyone who is here is a Christian. Let us go back to our Christ-like values. Let us operate our marriages on the principles of love and the principles of truth. Let us run to our God. Let us be converted. Let us be born again, so that the greed around and surrounding property should not take us to government to legislate that which is a Christian doctrine. If Christians think that marriage is a doctrine, the government should not legislate a Christian doctrine. Let us be honest. Let us love one another. Let us walk out of marriages of deception, and we'll have no problems with these governments. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Isaiah, and thank you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining in. We don't have time to discuss this, but I think we've had a very good discussion. The chat room is on fire. This session has been recorded, so if you'd like to share it with somebody, the YouTube link will come to you the way the invitation to the meeting came. Okay? Otherwise, we're here every Monday. We don't only discuss marriage, we discuss a range of topics, but from a Christian perspective. So if you are free on any other Monday, 6 to 8 p.m. East African time, please feel free and come and we discuss these matters. It's important to talk about these things. So thank you very much. I want us to stop here. I just want to say, may God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. Until we meet again sometime online. I'm out. Thank you very much.